Welcome to another edition of Sideline Sanity. I'm Michelle Tafoya. We are sponsored by Legacy Precious Metals. There has never been a better time to invest in precious metals. Go to legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. We thank them for their continued support. You're about to meet someone who's never done a podcast before. He told me that this is the first podcast he has accepted to be a guest on. His name is Dom Lucre. He is the founder of Credit Cadabra. He's a veteran. He is part of he featured on the New York Times 40 Under 40. This guy's no slouch. He's very, very interesting. I'm going to leave you with that and tell you that you need to listen to this. This is one of the more interesting, honest, straightforward conversations I've had in a long time. If you know who Dom Lucre is, then you're probably one of his followers on Twitter at Dom_Lucre, Lucre. If you don't know who he is, chances are you may someday. He's a self-proclaimed guy with a brand, expelled from the world of hip hop. You'll love the reason he got into hip hop in the first place. This one's unique, folks. This one's unique. Stay tuned.
For nearly 3 decades, she's reported the action from the sidelines. She started very young. She's covered the NBA, NFL, Olympics, and the college football and basketball national championships. And now, during these insane times in our world, Michelle Tafoya thinks we need a serious dose of sanity. This is Sideline Sanity with your host, one of the sanest people on planet Earth, Michelle Tafoya.
Dom Lucre, thanks for coming to Sideline Sanity. I appreciate it. How are you?
Doing good. How about yourself?
I am doing great. It's nice to meet you. You and I are meeting for the first time. I've followed you on Twitter, as do over 60,000 other people follow you on Twitter. But your background is interesting to me. And I'm going to reread what I read in the opening segment. Our culture is the problem. We will never progress if we murder everyone that does. Jack Harlow, BTS, and Bad Bunny don't have to worry about checking in, having ops, and getting finessed. It has been said countless times, and I will add to the count, the Black community is sick, and we are the solution. That is what is posted on your Twitter page, your homepage. What moves you about that statement? What is it about that drives you every day?
Well, it's my own, and I made that statement after the passing of Takeoff, the rapper. And it's just, to me, it's like, I'm staying in Nashville. I stay in downtown Nashville, and I also lived in Atlanta. I was in hip hop for about 5 years prior to even being in politics. And just from my perspective of both cities, way more gun violence in terms of like the hip hop culture. And you don't see country stars getting shot from whatever it is, from the allegations of being a dice game, whatever have you. It's not even in the culture. I don't see people down here in Nashville, country celebrities, rolling dice, shooting at each other if it don't go right, or placing bets, or even doing any type of culture that really endangers their life. So it really just drove me to, kind of address that it's only in our culture, only really in hip hop culture that you're seeing this, that these people are having these problems.
What do you think is the genesis of it? Like what started that? What is it about hip hop culture that sort of gave birth to this violence, if you will?
There was a transition in the 90s. If people notice, I'd say during like Tupac era, when Tupac first started, he wasn't really a gangster rapper, but it started to be really profitable if you create a school to prison pipeline. And hip hop started getting specific partnerships with private prisons, and they start profiting from encouraging the youth to get incarcerated. So you start to see
Hold on. I want to make sure I understand this, because what you're saying is breathtaking to me. You're saying hip hop got into... Go ahead.
Like label owners, Universal, Interscope, and things such as Sony and Warner Brothers. Like, they have partnerships with private prisons.
Really?
Yes, they actually get funded. So there was actually a meeting done in the 90s, and you can fact check this and look this up. And there's plenty of celebrities that even was present at the meeting that they get paid with specific capacity in prisons.
So the record labels are paying the prisons?
Not paying the prisons, no, it's the other way around.
The prisons are paying the record labels.
Yeah, the record owners, yeah.
Okay.
And it's been going on since the 90s. There was a transition from hip hop. Hip hop actually was very poetic.
Yes, I loved old hip hop, man. I just loved it.
Yeah, it was very poetic. And you'll see the transition. I don't know if it was like 1991, 92, but the same year when the alleged meeting happened, you see Tupac got a Thug Life tattoo. And you start seeing a lot of representation from just being a thug itself. They was personifying what a thug was. And to be tough, you had to be a thug. And they started that with Tupac. It was like the formula. And they copied and pasted and continued it. After a while, it became the culture to be cool and be accepted and being black. You had to be a thug. Now, being black is synonymous with crime. We're going to see a lot of criminals. So,
how did you decide to leave that hip hop world? Was, to make this move away from it?
It kind of forced it. In 2020, during the election, I've always been conservative. My mom was conservative and my dad was liberal, and I chose to take after my mom at 6 years old. But I've stayed under the radar, of course, to stay within hip hop and not to really offend nobody. I stayed under the radar. But it wasn't until the 2020 election I made a post just on Facebook saying we need Rudy Giuliani after the votes kind of transitioned from Donald Trump to Biden. And I was just like, I feel like something fishy could be going on. And from that, I pretty much was expelled. Like, just speaking on that alone, it led to one thing to another. And here I am. But just really making one post, just saying, hey, what's going on with the 2020 election? And that was pretty much it for my hip hop career.
Wow. This has me very curious. What was it like to be that conservative, knowing that you were, but couldn't show it? And you're you're in this world, in this industry that is anything but conservative, and you've got to hide it. How was that for you?
You would think it would be very hard, but wow, I cannot believe my cat really.
I love it. What's the cat's name?
Seti. His name is Seti.
We got to know that before, because now we've seen Seti. So, all right. All right. You'd think it would be hard to survive in hip hop as a conservative, I feel, but.
Yeah, it's not, because behind closed doors, a lot of people really are conservative. So even rappers, producers, etc., they value their importance. They value their gun rights. All of them, they talk about having their protection. They value having their family traditions, putting their children in schools. They value protection. Family first. Most of them have the same values as conservatives. They don't really even share ideologies with liberals, from what I've seen in hip hop. So when you're talking with these people, you have the same dreams as them. You have the same aspirations. It's only red and blue when people identify who they are, really. But when you don't have a title in front of it, you're very similar. So it wasn't that hard really to, exist in it, because you don't talk politics in hip hop, period.
Yeah.
You just talk regular life, and regular life we all could agree on.
Wow. So this kind of gang rap, this thug rap, I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, forgive me, because I'm just stupid or ignorant of it, but it really became profitable. Clearly it became a moneymaker, right?
Yes, it definitely is. It became a product, and you can see that hip hop did try to transition away from it during times like Lil Uzi Vert, Lil Pump, and things like that. But we see they transitioned back to hip hop, and right now we see more incarcerations and deaths than ever in hip hop when the transition went back. So it just shows the results of that. If you would compare the amount of people that's being incarcerated now to 2013 or even being murdered, it's a dramatic difference, because the people in hip hop are actually living that lifestyle. So they started integrating those people back in, and you see our crime rates are starting to actually reflect that as they are starting to rise.
Aren't they afraid? I mean, don't they feel endangered, or do they feel just invincible?
I would probably say the latter. Yeah.
I mean, it's scary stuff, and it's sad. It's really sad. Some valuable lives have been lost. And I mean, any life lost, really, who isn't well, we don't have to get into the comparison of that, but
Mhm.
okay. So you've been expelled, as you put it, from the rap community. So you find yourself in Nashville and you see that this is not the case at all in country music.
Yeah.
So are you drawn a little bit toward that country lifestyle?
Well, to be completely honest, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm still not drawn to country. I'm a veteran, so I've always had to like support country music and listen to it on the bus, especially during basic. But one thing about me and my brand, I'm completely honest. And no, I don't really identify with it. And I think that's the main reason why I can gravitate to so many black people, because my truth, I still gravitate towards like a hip hop culture and community. That's what I was raised around. I came from very humble beginnings. It's not that easy to break it. I still listen to Drake. I still listen to these things. Is it wrong? Yeah. But it's all I knew. It's not really easy to make that transition. And honestly, it's a lot easier to talk to someone that if you want to make them vote red, if you can identify with something they identify, it's a lot easier to infiltrate, integrate, and separate than just trying to separate from the get-go.
So let's go back to when you're 6 and you decide to adopt your mom's way of her worldview. And as you're growing up that way, but still, as you said, your dad, a liberal, what sort of key things happened in your life to continue sort of the support of the conservative side and end up becoming, as you said, you served?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was during the Bush and Al Gore election, actually. My mom had voted for Bush and my dad voted for Gore. And I asked her specifically, why did you vote for Bush? And it was a pretty extensive answer. She was just saying, it's time for a change. And her main thing was that Bush and the Conservative Party reflected, the party of Christ, because she was a very heavy Christian. Mm-hmm. And she was just naming how Democrats was taking prayer out of school and a lot of things, and Christ out of Christmas. And I was asking my dad why he voted Democrat. And he said, well, that's just because of what black people do. So, I just compared those two answers at that time and chose to side with my mom. And through life, I was getting so many like validations that it was the right choice. Just growing up, I was able to see just, the negatives of living a liberal lifestyle.
Go ahead. You were about to cite some examples.
Like any of the cities I've been to, any of the cities that was like liberal heavy, I was able to see like Detroit, Atlanta, Los Angeles, any of them that's liberal heavy, even in red states. If you see the blue city, the crime is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. The crime and the culture is just unbelievable. Even all the way down to New York. So experiencing these things growing up and able to compare them to South Carolina when I was growing up, it wasn't perfect. Yeah, but they had crime and they had drugs, but in comparison to the quantity of it, it just wasn't. It was no comparison. And so I was able to learn that policies had a lot to do with my environment at an early age.
Did you have many friends who felt the same way you did or that you could talk to about it?
Oh, not at all. No. Not at all. No.
And then you entered the armed services. Which branch? Forgive me.
Army. I entered the Army. I went to basic training. I think it was 9 days exactly after I graduated high school. So they had me to go as soon as I graduated.
And what was that experience? How formative was it for you and your worldview?
It was empowering. It definitely changed the way and my perspective on a lot of things. It really did. It changed my perspective on a lot. I'll never forget. I'll say growing up, there was a lot of prejudice in the little country town of South Carolina that I stayed in. And I don't really like to use the term racism. And I know people would just hate that because to me, racism is you're being limited because of your race. Mm-hmm. Prejudice, I've seen a lot of prejudice, but I've never been limited, or my family's never been limited to our race in South Carolina. So it did allow me to grow up with just a type of distorted view that white people might have not trusted me because I was black, or might have just thought that I could have been a criminal because I'm black. I actually started to believe that. I went in the Army, and man, after I finished basic training, I had my uniform on for the first time, and they sent me down to AIT in Fort Sam Houston in Texas. And I'll never forget when I got to that airport in Texas, how many people just came up to me and just how much love Texas was. Because, there was so much propaganda of what Texas was like and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like the conservative landmine. And never in my life have I seen the amount of love and support I did for those Texans. Ever since then, I fell in love with just the culture of Texas and Texans. They were so loving. I mean, God, almost every other person wanted to buy me and everyone around us a drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. It changed my perspective. And I was like, man, you really have to go and see it for yourself. You really have to see it for yourself. Don't listen to anyone else's perception, especially if it's online. You have to go live it.
Yeah, that's true about a lot of things online. So I guess that begs the question, why not stay in Texas?
I just felt like God was, I felt like he called me somewhere, and that was only AIT. So that was just kind of like, that's similar to college for the Army. After that, they sent me to Fort Bragg. So I was there for the remainder of my term. After that, that's when I transitioned to hip hop. So I moved to Atlanta.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be able to do much in hip hop in Texas in comparison to Atlanta.
Well, that's true that. Given all of this that you got through, you have such an interesting background. So you come out of the armed service, you come out of the Army, and you go to hip hop. Now, I would imagine that that's a really cool industry and a lot of fun, and that's what drew you in. Is that the case? Is that what brought you there? Just the opportunity, the fun, the lifestyle? What drew you?
I was actually vice president of a label, so I didn't never do music. I was never a musician, just always been behind the scenes in business. I just really wanted to get super duper rich. So in the most stupidest terms, honestly.
God, I just love that honesty. I love it. That's why I'm laughing. It's just you don't hear that kind of honesty every day.
Yeah, I don't care. I care nothing about the lifestyle or the jury. I just wanted so much money so my dad didn't have to work. My dad worked 3 jobs my whole life. I wanted to change that. So that really was one of my main motivators. Okay.
So now in Nashville, what are you doing with yourself?
I own a financial advising company, and it's a credit repair company called Cadabra. And we also have a service where we give out free credit repair and home services for anyone that's homeless. So anyone that's homeless that might need services and get into a house, we do housing assistance for free.
Wow.
Outside of that, just, of course, political commentary.
Yeah.
My business.
Yeah, and it's abundant. And I want to read a few of your tweets, and we'll do that after this commercial break, because some of this stuff is pretty funny. Some of it's definitely provocative. So we're talking to Dom Lucre, and we're going to get into some of his tweets and his politics after this. Well, it's pretty honest to say you get into a business because you want to get really, really rich. And I think that's the American dream, right? Now, not everyone wants to be rich, but everyone wants to have a retirement they can count on. I think that's a safe thing to say. And, with Social Security kind of not all encompassing, not necessarily something we all feel we are going to count on for our entire retirement, you've got to think about your 401k. You've got to think about your IRA, your retirement. And this is where gold and silver come into play. And the only company I trust when investing in gold and silver is Legacy Precious Metals, legacypminvestments.com. Now, gold prices are rising. Investors are buying gold because it's a hedge against inflation and it protects against a weakening dollar. It does things that the stock market simply cannot do. It's a safe, long-term play. So you probably want to find out more, and I would encourage you to do it soon, because think back to 2008. Those who invested in gold saw significant gains. Others lost their retirements. So speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals. I can't recommend that phone call enough. 866-528-1903. 866-528-1903. Or you can download their free investor's guide at legacypminvestments.com. legacypminvestments.com. You can find Dom Lucre at Twitch TV /Dom_LUCRE. Featured on the New York Times 40 Under 40. Founder of Credit Cadabra. Put the homeless in homes, a veteran, breaker of narratives. That's how he describes himself. I love this one. He wrote a day ago, I need help. I'm filing my taxes. How do I claim Ukraine as a dependent? So I'm guessing you're not a real big fan of all the money going to Ukraine.
No, I haven't. I remember the video that went viral. I had this Democratic canvasser that was calling me for Warnock. Yeah, Raphael Warnock. And that was one of the main talking points. I was telling him, she was saying it was fascist, that Republicans support Trump. And I was saying, what's fascist is Ukraine getting $1 billion sent to them and it's being sent back to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So I've never really been a fan of that, especially when we were told we couldn't afford the wall. So, I just don't get that. 100 billion cent wall was around no more than 20 billion, I don't think. I think it was under 20 billion. But we were able to send 100 billion to Ukraine, and Trump wasn't able to get his wall. So I didn't understand that.
It's all a question of priorities, right? And what looks right. And it's interesting, though, you as a veteran, this perspective on Ukraine, it sounds to me like your bigger concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, is how safe we are in this country. And if we cannot secure that, why are we giving so much to other people's borders when we haven't secured our own? Do I have that about right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Even like so much when I help with the homeless. When I was staying in Chattanooga, I stayed there prior to up here in Nashville. I was a part of a group called Citizens Crusade. I was a founding member. And every second Sunday, we will go out and help the homeless camps and help restore them, put out stuff like, any type of bug repellent, any type of rat killers, give them trash bags, give them type of vitamins. Because you can't, by law, actually, people don't know this, but by law, you can't actually give veterans food or cook for them unless you get approval of the city. And they give you a big runaround just to serve the people, believe it or not.
I believe
you
it.
can give them vitamins and waters and things like that. And we would do that every second Sunday and restore the camps. And I just noticed how much our government wasn't actually doing. The people that's actually out there helping are people like you and me. It's just regular citizens, regular Americans that's helping. But they have so much time for foreign governments. And it's been that way since I was born. I just never understood that. Why can't they have just 1 year dedicated to their own country?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a legitimate question. You congratulated Kanye West on getting married to Bianca Censori. That just is very recent news. And that to me would seem politically toxic because Kanye's been disowned. What's your view on what's gone on with him in the past 6 months?
I think he needs medication.
Yeah.
I'll say. There's a lot of stuff he said that I feel like when conservatives agreed with him, I agreed with him. When the GOP was posting him up, that's when I agreed with him. That's what I'll say.
Okay.
But it comes to a limit. It was a limit to me. Approaches everything. Mm-hmm. His heart could have meant well, but approaches everything to me. So.
Do you think there's room for him to rebound?
And I was a God, redemption is for anyone. So, yeah, I believe so.
Well said. I wish I had the white privilege to slap Chris Rock and still be nominated for an Oscar the same night. Wait a minute. I love that one because, again, you're pointing out there's this notion of white privilege. And clearly, it didn't come to play in that particular instance of Will Smith not only getting up and slapping Chris Rock, but then winning an Oscar. Yeah. So I'm guessing that you're not a big fan of Will Smith, although I'll let you tell me.
I was a big fan. I don't like him recently. I don't even approve of that. I do think you should stand up for your wife. You're in a position of respect. Mm-hmm. You had the Oscars for God's sake. No, that's not how you carry yourself. And they always talk about being a black man. They represent black men. Well, you just represented the angry black man right then. That's not good representation to me. They'll say we have these stereotypes. You see an angry black man could not control himself. So I don't really approve of that. I think he was a phenomenal actor in the past, but his last movies have all been busts.
Yeah.
And I believe it got a lot to do with that narcissistic relationship. He can't act anymore. But I used to be a good fan of him. I'm a fan of his recent actions now.
Yeah, what was not to love? I mean, Fresh Prince, it was just, loved that. And it was partly because he had phenomenal comedic timing. He was so likable. You know, he did the theme song, whatever. I've loved him, and he's been great in several movies.
Yeah.
Tremendously talented, but, that may have been the death knell for him. Dear GOP, Trump's impeachments need to be expunged. So Trump is saying he's running again. He's put his hat in the ring. We now have Biden with some documents of his own, some top secret classified documents that he has stored. So now we've got this very interesting situation. Is Trump your top choice for president?
Yeah, he is.
He's your top choice. Why is that?
The reason being because a lot of people I see are ready to take a risk on someone else. And my thing is this. Why take a risk if we already seen a formula that worked, a proven plan that worked?
But it didn't work the second time for him. He couldn't beat Biden.
The second time, no, it might have not worked. But everything that he did in the first time, I wouldn't be here if he wasn't here. Think about the election in my post. That's 70% of the GOP right now. People say that the media is liars and things like that. People didn't have the guts to say that till he said it first.
Well, that's a very good point.
He started everything, and I'm a very loyal person. I'm loyal to the GOP, and I can't forget what he did for us. I can't forget the way he woke us up. I can't forget the courage he gave us. I can't forget that he was a businessman, not a politician. I can't forget. It's almost like it's a relationship. As time go on, people start to forget what made them fall in love in the first place. And that's the relationship that the GOP has with Trump. He said first he wanted to save the children. He said first the media lied to us. He said first it's time to start investing in our country. He said first it's time to put the wall. I want to see him complete those things.
Interesting. You've also said you are considering a run. How serious are you about this?
Oh, very serious, yeah. Probably
they're in Nashville locally, or what are you thinking?
I'd be willing, if need be, I'd be willing to move to a blue state and flip it if needed, or a blue seat. I don't really want to have like a pointless win. Nashville is kind of real. It's liberal itself, but the GOP doesn't really need Tennessee in my eyes. We have Tennessee, and we're going to have Tennessee for a while. We need some of these blue areas. So,
well, you mentioned Raphael Warnock, and he, to me, is, you know, that Herschel Walker race was just like two not great candidates, and I guess Georgia decided the lesser of the two evils was going to win. Would you ever consider going back to Georgia?
I would be considering to go to Georgia and run for Senate even. Yeah. I mean, there's no skeletons in my closet to expose, so I think I already matched that point. So
some people would say that a loyalty to Trump is enough to get you hurt. That Trump's candidates, Kari Lake in Arizona, we could go down the list, Herschel Walker, that they were hurt because of that loyalty to Trump. How do you think you'd overcome that?
I think it's no different than what we went through in the past. Is label is a label. It's on that person to verify it to be true or not. They can say that till they hear me speak.
That's a great point. What would your message be? What is your message? What do you want America to look like?
Different. Just that. Different. It shouldn't be the same way it was when I was born. I'm 28. It shouldn't be that way when I'm 58. I think it's time to change it.
And so if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing, the first thing you would want to change about America, it would be what?
Mental health awareness.
Mental health awareness. That is a something that's for some reason people are willing to overlook. I think it's behind a lot of the crime statistics we see. We've got to know that about New York and we've got to know that about Northern California and San Francisco. You've got a lot of this. It's very obvious to identify. Why do you think it's been ignored?
It's been ignored because it's one of the hardest battles to fight is ourselves. So for anyone to address that mental health awareness is a problem, that would kind of force them to take their own into accountability. It's not really that easy to fight your own battles.
Yeah.
So it's easier to just fight someone else's, So mental health awareness, it kind of forces everyone to look within. Some
So that
people
would be the first thing. Okay. Let's round out your top three. What would be the next thing?
can't. I'd say the second would be criminal reform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's time for criminal reform on both parties, in my opinion. Some of the things just don't make sense. Some of the things are outdated and old, just like how there's one specific type of police officer for every scenario. There's other countries that implemented a domestic violence police officer to handle domestic violence cases. A police officer that has to deal with bank shootouts, I don't think he necessarily should have to deal with a domestic violence case 2 days later.
That's
So
interesting.
criminal reform would definitely be one.
But so where did you stand when people were saying after the George Floyd incident, defund the police?
No, I'm not for. I'm thinking about like increasing the funds of the police. That way, you can create more departments that are
Gotcha.
appropriate, not defund, but fund. That way, they can do their job appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah. I was on a podcast about 6, 8 months ago where they attested to me that the police were originally created to be nothing more than slave catchers. And that is the root of the police ideology and mental approach to policing. I don't buy that. Do you?
They say the capturing.
They said that the police in America were originally
Oh,
designed to capture slaves, that
oh,
was the
slave.
only role of police, or that's what it was
No,
born of.
That's just so ignorant to even say that to me. Yeah, there was an actual badge that showed slave catcher, and the badge is the same as a sheriff badge. That's where that came from. And yeah, a slave catcher was a person of authority. It was an actual job. So that's just anywhere in the world. You go to Libya, you can see the same thing. That's a place of authority. That's a government position. So of course it's going to have a badge, but it's a part of a department. Police exist in every single, realm of existence.
Yeah.
That was not the origination of police. It started from them having to detain criminals.
It's interesting to me, Dom, how many people, particularly on the left, believe that America is so problematic and that America is uniquely problematic and uniquely racist and uniquely evil. And yet these issues that they're talking about still exist. There is slavery in China. We could go on. There is evil that still exists, has existed for all time, and still exists in other parts of the world. And yet this hatred toward America is so thick, so deep. Why?
Because division is more profitable than peace. Peace is not profitable. It's just not. I mean, do people, let's say, which is more entertaining, a puppy got saved or a maniac set a puppy on fire? Yes, the latter is horrible, but we both know which one's going to get more clicks. We both know which one's going to get more attention. We both know which one's going to get viral. We both know which one's going to start a debate. Is it debatable? Yes, it's profitable. And division is debatable.
And therefore profitable. Last question for you, Dom. You are so interesting to me. You're unique. But what I'm finding that I like maybe the most about you in our brief introduction here is your courage. Like you are not afraid to go against the grain. You are not afraid to speak your mind. And heck, you've been expelled from one industry, hip hop. So your courage is sky high. And I'm wondering where you come by that.
I don't know. Maybe my nature. I'm not too big on zodiacs. I'm an Aries. I don't know. I like red, of course. I don't know where that comes from. I think it really comes from my mom. My mom died in 2009. She had MS. Oh, thank you. She had multiple sclerosis, scleroderma, and a couple other things. But ever since I was born, we were pushing her in wheelchairs, having to help her and assist her. And she was just so strong. I remember when I first was born, growing up, my mom used to work at National at an airport in Augusta. She was for a manager at the car rental. And she worked so hard. And I remember when her body was giving out on her that they forced her to have to leave. And I just remember her strength then. And I remember at that point, my mom was like switched over to the paper route when her body got weaker. So then we started doing paper route. And then when her body got weaker, she started doing recycling. And when her body got weaker, she started doing taxes. So until the end, she was resilient. And my dad, like I said, he worked at the church as a custodian, and he was a building ground supervisor at a school. And on weekends, he did his lawn care business. So I come from a background of very hard work and seeing that results only come from action, no matter the circumstance.
That is a message a lot of people in America need to hear right now, because in this time where people seem to thrive being the victim and pointing at everyone else for their problems, your mom, your dad are both great examples, as are you, of people who put that stuff aside and say, I'm responsible for myself. I have my own agency here. I can do whatever I want. And as you've said, you don't think being Black has held you back. I'm going to keep up with you, Dom.
I've benefited from being Black.
How so?
Look at my brand now. It's more interesting when a Black person said these things for these conservatism. It's just true.
All right. So what if someone says to you, oh, then the only reason you're saying this stuff is to get clicks, to get attention?
I'm too intelligent for that. People can see that my content is more than clickbait. I'm educating. Now it takes real passion to educate. Clickbait is easy. I have a mission. It's easy to see that if people read my content.
Yeah, that there's no question about that. And so again, I would encourage people to follow you. So it's at Dom _Lucre, Lucre. And I'd suggest people follow you, because you clearly are thoughtful and well read and your background shows that you're not just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, that you have conviction and that you have standards. And I like you, Dom. I'm so glad I got to talk to you, and I hope we can do it again.
Likewise, and me too. It really is a pleasure. And thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah,
and I love your brand, of course. Always been a fan.
Thank you for that. And now we're fans of Dom Lucre, and we're going to watch his every move, because this guy's interesting, and I have a feeling he's going places.
That's such an honor.
Dom Lucre, everyone. Thanks for tuning into Sideline Sanity, and as always, be brave and do good. We'll see you next time. Always a good day when Charles Thorngren of Legacy Precious Metals can join us and answer some really different questions. And I thought of a few new ones for you, Charles, if that's okay. Yeah, I'm fascinated, and we hear so much about gold and silver and precious metals. So if I could just ask this broad question, what is the role of gold in a portfolio?
Great question. And when we look at that, and the answer to that has a couple different features to it. It depends on the individual, but its main purpose is the insurance policy for your finances. It is meant to be the foundation by which you do all other things, right? We know that gold and silver have an inverse relationship to the dollar. It protects your purchasing power. So when we invest, that's what we're saying. We want to make sure that we have the ability to manage our money and have our money do what we need it to do for us. It's not the collection of dollars for dollar's sake, but for what it does for us, how we pay our bills, how we retire, how we feed our family, how we go on and bless others and donate to causes we believe in. That's what money does for us. It's not the dollar itself. It's the thing it provides for us. And what gold does is make sure that that money continues to have purchasing value.
Because there are times we find that, hey, my money doesn't have the same purchasing value it had last month.
Absolutely. And this is a unique time. We're seeing it. This term called hyperinflation, which usually refers to, inflation in the 18s and 20%. I consider this a time of hyperinflation because it's so much more than what we're normally used to, right? When we prepare and we budget and we say, this is the course of my life and this is how I'm going to do things, this is where I'm going to put my money, we use some basic numbers. 2 to 3% inflation, that's what the Fed says is good. But that's not even great. Over a lifetime, that's a lot of inflationary loss to your dollar. But when you have a period where it jumps to the points where we're at now, and we're in the 8.5s, 9s, going to be into the double digits soon. In this shorter time frame, that's a hyperinflation situation to me because it throws everything off dynamically and so radical.
You do see us going into double digits, huh?
Absolutely. The Fed even sees us going into double digits. There was an interesting report where one of the Fed chairman were saying 2023, we're not going to talk about that. But in 2024, by summer, we may be able to start to drop the interest rates. When someone tells me they're in charge of something, but they say this new year that's coming, just forget about that completely. We're not even going to talk about that. That's a bad sign.
They don't want you to think about it.
Exactly.
They want you to look past it and sort of write it out.
Write it off right now. Just don't even think about it. It's going to be bad. But hey, 2024 though, and interestingly enough, right around the time of an election, they want to start talking about what they're going to do.
Isn't that fascinating? That timing is just really interesting. Before we finish up here, I'm always fascinated with how gold is priced. How do we get a price of gold?
The spot price of gold is really determined by the world market, the London Bullion Exchange, right? And this has been for hundreds of years now, sets a price, and the rest of the world revolves around that. Now, our currency will determine how much more than it is in the pounds and things like that. And there's a calculation for it. But that's one of the great things about gold and silver. Their value is recognized around the world. No matter what currency, what country you're in, it has value. I just recently come back from a trip where I was overseas not that long ago, and I bring gold with me everywhere I go. Not a lot, so don't try to catch me in the airport. But I have something that is valuable no matter where I'm at. I can go anywhere in any country and turn that into its currency in no time at all.
You're talking about carrying around physical gold?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Do you
How
walk
much
around
is
with
safe
dollars?
to carry around if you're no, you're right. So if and that gold is going to have the same value across the board, no matter where I go,
Slight
right?
deviations, very slight deviations,
Yeah.
but it's not very large.
Okay.
Usually less than
Yeah.
1% difference in the price.
This is really interesting. I can't let you go before I ask you this because I'm picturing you now walking around with some gold coins in your pocket. I'm thinking, wow, that would feel risky. But when you go into another country, for instance, with some gold, how easy is it for you to go say, here, I want to exchange this for, I'm assuming you're not going to a restaurant and slapping down a gold bullion or something.
No, but you could overseas. In certain places of the world, they recognize that just like regular currency.
Wow.
But I wouldn't use gold.
But
for
it's
dinner.
easy to exchange once you get to another country?
Yeah.
Just
Very easy. Most of the time you can do it at the
Interesting.
airport. Same places where they change currency. A lot of them will change metals too.
And is physical bullion the best way to go?
It is. It really is.
When you're traveling or always in any investment in gold?
There's certain things you can do outside of just bullion that may make sense once you've laid a portfolio down, right? Diversity in metals is important too, but your basis for all investments should be your basic bullion, whether it's gold or silver. You want to have that foundation set in the base metal itself, giving you the most value that you can get.
And obviously every person's situation is unique. So why not just call and speak to an IRA expert at Legacy Precious Metals, 866-528-1903, 866-528-1903, or they can always download your free investor's guide, right? It's at legacypminvestments.com, legacypminvestments.com. Do you have any gold on you right now?
I do. Give me half a second.
I got to see this. I just want to see. I mean, it seems like almost like in the old days when you walk around with that, Mr. Scrooge and his gold coins in his pocket. Not that you're Scrooge. Can you sort of turn it around and show us that? That's now for our listeners, they're not going to be able to see what we're seeing, but you've got a little container and they're kind of the size of $50, right?
Yeah, just about $50. And this is the American Gold Eagle, and this is $22,000 worth of metal.
Yikes! Charles isn't messing around, and neither are we. But please go get your questions answered. This is such an important time to be thinking about your money, your long-term play, in addition to every short-term concern that you have. Charles, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And you know what? 2023 is coming. Call now, find out so you can make your decisions before then.
Yes, and before the elections again, and
Yes.
they can tell us what they're going to tell us then. They're telling you to overlook 2023. That means now's the time to inquire.
Absolutely.
Again, legacypminvestments.com. Charles Thorngren, always good to see you.
Thank you.